Hello and welcome to the first webinar of Next Atlas this year. Today we will embark in a journey of discovery of the Meta Shopper, and we will talk about how brands and retailers should think about to connect with consumers today, tomorrow, and in the future, and particularly the shoppers. Debora?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Debora, and I'm a trend researcher and data analyst at Next Atlas.
And I'm Mario Coletti, Managing Director of Next Atlas UK. And I will shortly introduce you to the session, whilst Debora will take us through the long journey on the Meta Shopper. Most of you already know Next Atlas. Many of you have already a license of Next Atlas. Others have been friends, have been following us for quite a while. So I guess most of you know what we do, but I would like to refresh your mind and remind you that we use artificial intelligence to analyze social media data with the purpose of identifying emerging signals that will give us the evidence of potential trends of the future. The way we do it is by identifying what we call innovators and early adopters in social media, those that are either initiating conversation or jumping into early conversation worldwide across more than 20 different industries. So we analyze hundreds of thousands of industry-specific innovators and their followers, millions of posts, and we have a very large library of over 600 track tags that we are constantly monitoring across many platforms, from Pinterest to Instagram to Twitter to Behance. And the purpose of actually analyzing multiple platforms is because our unique technology is able to analyze both the visual and the verbal content that is emerging from social media. And crossing and correlating visual and verbal is helping us to identify better insights and better understanding on how these signals are evolving into real phenomena that eventually combined together generate the trends, and then through analysis of scenario understand how the trends are evolving into foresights that we can use to predict the future of brands and of products. And so we help our customer, our client, to develop their strategy from a communication to innovation perspective using Next Atlas data and Next Atlas platform. The benefits of using Next Atlas is that everything we do is based on quantitative research, quantitative data analyzed by artificial intelligence. It is focused on industry-specific data, and most importantly, whatever we do and measure is never a picture of one moment only, but is constantly constantly checked and always on, so we can see how the evolution of the different facts and trends and so on is impacting the business. Debora? So today's journey will start with a picture or a profile of today Web 2.0 shopper. We will talk about what we know already about the shopper, but in a different way, looking at many case studies and many different examples on how brands, retailers have actually learned and exploited the evolution of the shopper that is more and more a virtual plus physical shopper, and how the shopper is looking for different experiences and different ways of buying. After the Web 2.0 shopper, we will eventually introduce you to the Meta Shopper and how we think the shopper behavior and shopper attitudes will evolve in the future, obviously connected to the big evolution and transformation of all the digital world through Metaverse and so on. And finally, we will conclude on with insights to actions that are giving or will give you inspiration about what to do in the future. Debora. So we have already mentioned about the impact, or anyway, the fact that the Metaverse will actually change the way consumer shoppers will shop in the future. We are seeing, and we have been seeing and constantly monitor since 2019, the initiation and the early evolution of the Metaverse and different application to the Metaverse. Debora will talk about from NFT to more. And this journey is a continuous journey that will never stop here. So today is just an introduction. We started in 2019 to see how the shopper was going more and more into was becoming more and more interested in full personalized experiences, social buying, and so on and so forth. And this journey is a journey that will, as we will continue to evolve, we will continue to follow and see how it changes. But one of the most important thing is certainly that more and more with this combination of virtual and physical and digital, the shopper journey is no longer as linear as we used to think. And therefore, the traditional journey needs to be completely redesigned and rethought, considering how the evolution of searching, deciding, choosing, and shopping is going to impact the decision of the shopper. But enough from me. I think now is time to get into the details of what all this means. And Debora will actually take us through this exciting journey. Thanks, Debora.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you for the introduction. The first section of today's journey is called the Web 2.0 Shopper, as a reference to today's internet landscape and its impacts on the choices and habits of consumers. Now, in the first version of the internet, websites were more limited to simple content viewing. But the Web 2.0, it's all about interoperability for end users. It's about participatory culture, about dissemination of user-generated content, and so on and so forth. So the big difference between these two stages of the internet is that users are assuming a more active approach regarding online activities. And we can see how this shift of behavior also impacts people as consumers. They are assuming this more active posture when they're shopping as well, wanting to be more on top of things and make better, more conscious buying decisions. Now, summing up who the Web 2.0 shopper is in one single presentation is quite challenging. So we picked some of the most relevant tags that we've been seeing emerge and gain traction over the past years so that it could help us understand this consumer's profile. Now, when we see that, what we see today is that shoppers' lives are increasingly being filled with tech tools. Consumers today are growingly immersing in this pervasive virtuality, where e-commerce is consolidating as a mainstream practice. Mobile phones are now the go-to device for online shopping, and omnichannel strategies are becoming more and more integrated. We pair this group of tags with a macro trend monitored on our platform called contextual shopping. It's a key trend for us today because much of what we see in that topic serve as foundation to the rise of the meta shopper. It talks about how the internet, especially access through mobile phones and apps, improves the overall shopping experience and engages customers in a flow of contextual-centered moments. And it's not just that we're using our phones for online activities, but it can also be a tool to provide a more seamless and integrated journey in the physical world. Overall, in this first group of tags, we're talking about the importance of omnichannel strategies that actually work and provide a physical and digital seamless experience to customers. As we highlighted, the number of mentions of the word omnichannel grew 65% over the last 18 months. We wanted to show this positive growth of this keyword because it's important to understand that these trends are still very much important and relevant today, and they should not be overlooked when building business strategies. As Mari mentioned, the meta shopper will kind of be a result of a convergence of different values and behaviors, and much of what we see today will remain as a defining trait on tomorrow's shopper. We also see that these consumers are looking for more tailored experiences where customization is available in all shapes and forms. Full personalization is a trend that refers to the flourishing of products and services that can be fully personalized. Customers want to be in the command. They want to freely choose features, options, colors, and design according to their own terms. But it's more than just having a bespoke outcome. The whole journey needs to be centered in unique experiences, which is why we call it the full personalization. As you see, the word recommendations in retail presents a growth of 47% year over year. So from the moment when customers see a product for the first time, be through curated collections or automated recommendations, all the way to the final outcome, demand and interest for a comprehensive customized experience is one of the most defining traits of the Web 2.0 shopper. And as we were just talking about, the Web 2.0 shopper presents this active posture regarding not only their online activities, but also regarding their consumption behaviors in general. This whole phenomenon is very much influenced by the dissemination of social media platforms. Social buying is a trend that talks about how the use of social network in the context of e-commerce transactions is increasingly spreading. Today, the shopping experience is expanding from the simple act of buying goods and services, and it's becoming more and more a form of entertaining social moments as well. So one key driver behind this trend that we should keep in mind is how social media-driven purchases are gaining so much popularity because retail and entertainment boundaries are blurring more and more. The year-over-year growth of the words retail and entertainment is quite impressive, more than 150% year-over-year increase in popularity among users. Now, keeping in the back of your minds this first overview about the Web 2.0 shopper, we can move on and focus on discovering meta shopper, as we call them here at Next Atlas. For sure, you kind of guessed that it can be seen as a reference to the metaverse, which is often said to be the next version of the internet. But as you see in this chapter, this webinar is not concentrated uniquely on virtuality. Also, it's possible that you've might heard about some of the key ideas behind these trends that we'll be presenting today. And in fact, that's because we came up with this title because we wanted to stress the fact that we see the transition from the Web 2.0 shopper to the meta shopper as an evolution. Literally, meta means a change of position or condition, which is exactly what we are seeing happen today with consumers. An easy way to think of tomorrow's shopper is imagining a scenario that is constantly evolving, where we see old drivers remain relevant while new values and needs are being added. So you can see on your screen, in its core, the trends we mentioned previously still appear, but we are adding more and more layers of complexity to this big picture. The first group of words that compose this meta shopper evolution revolves around the relevance and importance of brick and mortar. Here we see words such as be local, city specific, and proximity that gain more and more traction in the last period, especially after the pandemic outbreak. There is this need for more meaningful connections that relates to words such as activations and one-to-one interactions. And we also see topics such as wellness, relationship, and community emerge, showing that the demand for belonging and overall well-being is also shaping tomorrow's consumer. This first word cloud resonates with the trend that we call human scale retail that we are monitoring on our platform. In fact, we wanted to open the whole meta shopper chapter with this trend to show that although tomorrow's consumers will be living great part of their lives in virtuality, physical experiences will continue to matter. The big difference though is that they'll be looking for other types of experiences in real life. They will look for more familiar, personal moments. In its core, this trend refers to how the very purpose of brick and mortar is evolving and taking a more intimate, slimmer shape. In fact, Physical stores are now becoming hubs where experiences that cannot be replicated in digital platforms are taking place. So we're talking about human interactions and community-based formats, but we're also talking about possibility of experimenting and testing products and the opportunity of activating consumer senses in a way that is very hard to accomplish in virtuality. Conversations revolving around this trend are mostly posted by Gen X and millennial users who show great interest in luxury goods. And as you can see from the trend lines, evolution and prediction, it's a relevant and reliable trend that started to gain more traction around 2020. A case study that resonates a lot with this trend is the recent Super Self project launched by Selfridges. So the luxury department store offered sex therapy sections and drug-free psychedelic trips, aiming to foster these moments of self-care among customers. This business case it's a very clear example of how the purpose of retail spaces is now moving way beyond product and service purchases, and how the topic of wellness is also becoming a focal point for retailers in order to connect with customers in a deeper level. The second group of words that helps us understand the meta shopper is more centered to the values that will be guiding these consumers' choices. And when we're talking about values today, we really cannot run away from bringing the sustainability topic to the table. This deepening care for the planet's well-being will continue to impact buying decisions, especially leading to more practices that kind of design out overconsumption and waste. Recommerce is a trend that encompasses all these topics. In fact, it's a trend that talks about how conscious consumerism and circular economy are spreading, with more and more people being careful about making better choices, not only for themselves, but also for the planet and society at large. Recently, we've seen that the secondhand and resale market exploded, and it's quite interesting to see how big retailers started to slowly move from first-hand to second-hand markets, launching initiatives such as buying back and reselling programs, as well as extending customer care services to help prolong the life cycle of products. Indeed, the mentions of aftercare associated with retail-centered online conversations have increased by 192% in Q4 2021 over Q4 2020. When we look at the data behind this trend, we see that it has a major impact on fashion and accessories and craft industries. Yet interestingly, we see also home and interiors figure at the top industries, which kind of shows how the interest for used objects and upcycling practices go beyond clothes and accessories, but also extends to furniture and furnishings. Eco-conscious Gen Z and millennials are the most engaged target group in conversations revolving around this topic. And it's a trend with a significant volume of mentions on social media channels, which becomes very clear when we look at the trend line and see the high levels of popularity. The prediction for the near future is very positive, and it can be considered a relevant and reliable trend. German e-tail giant Zalando launched a care and repair eco-initiative in partnership with Save Your Wardrobe. Save Your Wardrobe is a UK digital wardrobing app, and basically it's an interactive digital booking system that allows people to find repairing services for their belongings. So users can upload a photo of their clothes or accessories, and then through image recognition tag, the app identifies the brand and adds details on the work required. It's a great example of how first-hand retailers are increasingly delving into the re-commerce trend, and how many of them are even becoming sort of service providers, or at least assuming this role of mediators between self-care service companies and consumers. One key expression that really sums up well this third topic is quick gratification. Consumers want easy, hassle-free solutions when they're shopping. So we see tags such as convenience, contactless, Smile to Pay emerge here. But also we see that this third topic is also connected to the spread of ultra-fast delivery services and the tech tools that are eliminating the need for cash and even credit cards. This third topic relates to what we call the quick commerce trend. And it's about how customers are seeking for a greater sense of control and immediacy. And as you see, the word ultra fast in retail has grown over 400% over the last 18 months. Now, when we're talking about quick commerce, it's a topic very much related to the contextual shopping trend that we were talking about earlier today. Both trends reinforce this idea that last mile efficiency is not negotiable anymore. Of course, it's much related to the last year's events, starting with the boom of online retail therapy, with people trying to cope with mobility restrictions, with the supply chain disruptions, and even with the fast spread of hyperlocal offers and services. More recently, we're seeing that even the financial world is taking a notice of this growing need for instant gratification, as more fintech companies are jumping into the buy now, pay later schemes craze. The emerging techs for this trend are very much similar to the workflow that we presented earlier. Everything kind of revolves around frictionless payments, services, fast e-commerce, and convenience-driven solutions. The demographic group talking the most about this topic on social media channels is Gen Xers. And it presents an extremely high level of engagement of both gender expressions. Looking at the trend line, it becomes very clear that it's a trend with a sparking interest that gained more traction in the last 2 years or so. And we see that the prediction is extremely positive for the near future. Gorillas is a hyper-local delivery app that brings groceries to consumers in an average of 10 minutes. We brought this case today because it expanded its services and international footprint in an incredible pace, and it's often used as a reference case study for ultra-fast services. The company states that its mission is to provide consumers instant access to essential grocery needs. So you see, the idea of immediacy is clearly stated here. It illustrates really well this quick commerce trend and the growing interest in extremely efficient last mile approaches that answer to this need for instant gratification. And finally, the last group of texts today is a collection of different topics that we've been hearing a lot in the past years. An interesting tag here is gamification. Over the last period, we've seen an incredible dissemination of gamified solutions and the penetration of its penetration of different industries, especially the retail industry in the gaming world. And we see that there are terms such as immersive, AR, VR, and virtual trials, all important elements that differentiate the meta retail trend from simple online buying experiences. What other interesting tags to keep an eye on are NFT, member-only, digital showroom, and digital twin. We'll be talking more about some of these terms in a few moments, but for now, it's important to stress how they are part of this changing digital landscape and how they're actually giving traction to this trend we call the meta retail. The meta retail is a trend that has a lot to do with shopping experiences and branded spaces in virtuality, of course. As you can see, shopping and metaverse is predicted to steadily grow by 86% in the near future. Now, it's important to highlight that many experts agree that we might still be a few decades away from having a true metaverse, but some of the metaverse's main ingredients currently exist, such as ubiquitous networking, cryptocurrencies, and VR and AR technologies. And what we're seeing lately is that these ingredients are entering the retail world in a more aggressive way. In fact, we have seen the gaming boom and the NFT craze spread throughout different industries, and we predict that we'll continue to see these practices built around those topics that will gain more relevance as virtual spaces expand. The interesting thing is that all emerging new practices are becoming forms of boosting new forms of social currencies based on exclusivity, on members-only programs, and on personalization. The top industry in is fashion and fashion and accessories, sorry, which indeed has been one of the first industries to jump into this world, especially through gaming platforms and digital clothing. Advertising and branding come as second most concerned industry, which is quite interesting and very in line with the fact that for many companies, this expanding virtuality is all about extending branded space activations. Younger generations are the most interested cohort in meta retail, especially male users. And our platform shows a promising trend line in which we can see an extremely positive prediction of growth for the near future. The latest Samsung brand activation is a great example to illustrate the meta retail trend. The tech giant opened a virtual replica of its New York City flagship store on Decentraland. Decentraland is a 3D virtual world browser-based platform where users can actually buy virtual plots of digital land. So users here are able to virtually experience the physical Samsung building from its facade to its high-tech interior. Here we see this strong strategy of replicating a physical experience into virtuality, offering customers from anywhere in the world the chance to see how what the store looks like without needing to go all the way to New York. Now that we introduced you to some of the most relevant trends concerning the Meta Shopper, we can now move on to the third and final section of our webinar dedicated to the insights to action. Before moving on, I would like to remind you all that you're very welcome to ask questions. So please feel free, we'll be happy to answer to them. Now, insights to action. So you can see these insights as recommendations or even inspiration for to put these trends into action in a more practical way. And you see that some of these topics resonate with both Web 2.0 and the Meta Shopper. And that's because, as we highlighted previously, the Web 2.0 Shopper won't just disappear. It's more of an evolution where many of the drivers of today and tomorrow's consumers will overlap. This section is divided in 3 chapters: physical retail, digital touchpoints, and a final one we called Let's Go Meta. Our goal was to give recommendations for both physical and virtual worlds, but also highlight the fact that there's this third layer of complexity regarding the Meta Shopper, thanks to the rise and spread of the so-called Metaverse. One important key takeaway to introduce the topic of physical retail is the idea that brick and mortar will still matter a lot. With the pandemic crisis and periods of lockdown, there was a lot of debates about the future of physical stores. We even heard a lot of the expression retail apocalypse on the media, because everything felt so uncertain in that period, in the beginning of the health crisis. But what we learned in the last period is that in real life experiences remain very much relevant in retail. However, the very purpose and use of these spaces are actually evolving. As a first insight to action, we wanted to stress the importance of strategically designing physical spaces by adopting flexibility and adaptability as key approaches. This first insight to action is all about how ever-shifting scenarios and ever-changing consumers' needs require brick and mortar done with an open-ended approach, meaning that physical stores need to be ready to become an ever-evolving setting and embrace what we call the situational functionality, which simply means situation changes, functions change. Now, talking about flexible spaces and adaptable layouts are not novelties for sure, but they remain as very relevant strategies in the retail world. Our platform does provide data to support such statement. And in a business perspective, this data can definitely help you in your decision-making process. As you can see, the tags adaptable and flexible associated with retail and stores respectively had a significant growth in popularity year over year. And besides percentages of interest, our platform also provides information about the popularity of certain topics among different target groups. So here you see that physical retail is quite an important consumer touch point, especially when targeting eco-conscious and experimental consumers who show interest in luxury goods and tech products. Now, a good example of how this notion of situational functionality can be explored is the clothing brand Off-White flagship store in Miami. It's a case study worthy of mention because it is a retail setting, but it was designed to be a multi-purpose event space. For the store conception, late fashion designer Virgil Abloh reflected on the very purpose of retail spaces. For him, it should be seen as an environment that fulfills needs, which is why the whole shop was designed with this open-ended approach where it can host different events and accommodate multiple uses according to what is needed at a specific moment. The second insight to action relates to what we talked about earlier today when we mentioned this growing consumer need for more in-store experiential moments. But what kind of experiences are they looking for? With our platform, we actually can get some answers to that question. For instance, we see that store and experiences are two words that are largely associated with immersion, innovation, and entertainment. Among these different related tags, we also see the word experiment emerging, which is an interesting insight about the future of physical retail. Further investigations on NextAtlas also show that tester in retail has grown over 40% of popularity in the last quarter of 2021 when compared to the same year, to the previous year. In fact, what we've been seeing a lot out there is that this idea of product testing and experimenting is becoming a key strategy to grab shoppers' attention. But not any kind of product testing. We call it augmented testing. There's a difference between simply offering fitting rooms and actually providing an experience where consumers can test products. Retailers need to focus on hands-on experiences that leverage the importance of physical spaces and boost the very relevance of a real-life brand activation. An emblematic example of this notion of in-store product testing and experimenting is Nike's experience in Paris. The activewear giant built a weather dome to recreate sensations of extreme weather. It's a very clear brand activation that provides that added value to the whole shopping experience. Everything is centered in the test before you buy idea that really serves as an attractive invitation to shoppers to actually come to the physical store by themselves and try the products. Again, it can be used as an inspiration on how to provide a hands-on experience that could not be reproduced on virtuality. Here, the brand creates a whole space that activates all senses and boosts this consumer brand relationship as shoppers actually can buy something that they see, they feel, they test, they know that it works. In the first part of this webinar, we've seen how when it comes to the Meta Shopper, it's all about immediacy and use of frictionless experiences. When we are talking about digital touchpoints, instant gratification is really becoming a key concept to keep in mind. Rapid services and integrated systems are providing more seamless experiences, and that last mile efficiency really is not negotiable anymore. And this whole digital landscape is also accommodating these buying journeys that are half shopping, half entertaining experiences, which is becoming a key approach to grab tomorrow's consumers' attention. Social media channels are growingly infiltrating the shopping landscape in a perfect marriage between retail and entertainment. This is what we were talking about when we mentioned the spread of social shopping trend and the proliferation of two-way interactions between consumers and brands. And why social media in specific? So companies should really take advantage of the fact that, one, social media channels are now widespread. Two, many people around the world, they spend a lot of time in these platforms. And three, most importantly, they are extremely familiar with these platforms. So putting efforts to integrate them into the buying journey is really becoming an important strategy that to boost consumer engagement. Our predictions are backed by the data pulled from Atlas. You can see that the tag viral in retail grew more than 40% in popularity in the last quarter of 2021 compared to the same period in 2020. Also, the mentions of the words shopping and social media have been growing more than 100% year over year. And when we look at the related tags that emerge from these two words, we can get other types of takeaways. TikTok and viral emerge among these tags, which can kind of gives us hints on the most popular mediums, the type and the format of content that is actually grabbing attention of consumers, and the importance in keeping an eye on consumer-generated buzz. American grocery company Albertsons' partnership with Pinterest is an interesting way of unlocking retail opportunities using viral content. The supermarket chain lets consumers add ingredients for recipes they find on Pinterest directly to their cart on the grocer's app. The company will also use technology from Pinterest to recommend meal options and ideas based on consumer searches and pinned items. For retailers, the Albertsons case can serve as an inspiration for an in-house application, but it's worth mentioning that we are now witnessing an evolution of social media network as well. These platforms are increasingly adding new tools and options that directly connect brands and consumers. They are really shifting from a photo sharing messaging exchange space to a shopping platform. Today, mobile phones are the most popular devices for online shopping. As you can see in the upper right corner of the slide, it is a cross-generational topic that regards both male and female users. Now, we do know that mobile phones are important for retail, but what is the future of the applications that we are using in our phones? This evolution of social media app we just talked about also opens the discussions about how they will evolve in the future. With this increasing number of shopping features and tools being integrated into these platforms, we can also project the future where some of these channels will actually become super apps. For those who are not familiar with the term, super apps can be seen as gatekeepers of everything a person can do online. They are applications that combine multiple services into one single app. The idea is actually quite well known in Asia, with WeChat in China and KakaoTalk in South Korea. Both of these apps are messaging platforms that evolved over time, and now they serve as a form of digital wallet, even as a digital ID. It's like a one-stop place to do everything online instead of navigating multiple standalone apps. In fact, online conversations mentioning the words apps and super together have been growing year over year, as our data shows, and we predict that these super apps will likely become an important tool in Western markets as well. You see the mentions of WhatsApp, one of the most used messaging apps in many parts of the world, associated with the word shopping, have increased by 36% in 2021's last quarter compared to the previous year. The new PayPal app announced last year gives us a really good idea of what a super app can be. It's an all-in-one personalized app with different features, including in-app shopping tools, bill payments, QR code enabled purchases, even crypto transactions. Let's check them out.
With the new PayPal app, there are more ways to get what I need, even if I can't get to my wallet.
And there are more ways for me to treat myself when I'm out and about.
With the new PayPal app, there are more ways for me to send and receive money safely when the moment calls for something extraordinary.
With the new PayPal app, there are more ways to say thanks.
The new PayPal app, there are more ways for me to explore crypto with confidence.
And more ways for me to break up purchases with Pay in 4, which is awesome if payday is next week, but the sale ends today.
There are more ways to buy,
Pay, save,
give, explore.
There are more ways to PayPal.
Great. Well, as I mentioned in the beginning of this section, there's this third layer of complexity regarding the Meta Shopper, thanks to the rise and spread of the so-called Metaverse. Although the idea today is not really to go into details on what the future of the internet is, we notice that for many businesses, it can be quite challenging to get into this evolving virtual space. So we wanted to give you some ideas on how to approach these new technologies, working on the notion that they can actually help add value to products and services. For those who are not familiar with the term, NFT are non-fungible tokens, meaning that they are non-interchangeable units of data stored on a blockchain, meaning that each token is uniquely identifiable. And why are they important? Because they are actually changing the rules on ownership and authenticity. NFTs are introducing new types of social currencies based on premium, hyper-exclusive offers. Now, our insight to action here is, once you understand how NFT tech works, that it provides this unique token, certificate, if you may, then use it to reward your customers and boost that sense of loyalty. It's basically saying to your customer, hey, you're an important part of our company, and there's this extra token that proves that you are part of it, that you are unique for us. The data related to this topic is quite impressive. Next Atlas platform shows that the association of the word NFT and reward grew more than 3,000% over the last year or so. And the mentions of membership and NFT grew more than 100% in the same period of time, mostly posted by female Gen Zers. Lately, we've been seeing a lot of brand activations associated with these technologies in the fashion world. But this case study here, it's a great one to show how other industries are also entering this NFT craze. Skincare company Clinique created 3 editions of its first NFT digital art called Meta Optimist, this conceptual molecule that you're seeing on your screen. But the interesting part is that instead of just selling the NFTs, the brand offered its loyalty program members the chance to receive an assortment of products once a year over the next decade. Basically, they revamped their loyalty program, rewarding their customers with a piece of NFT that is extremely exclusive. It's a sort of certificate that says that they own not only a digital art, but also this exclusive sort of products for the next decade. This business case leads us to our last and final insight to action of today's webinar. Through our platform, we detected that the word metaverse, when associated with retail or shopping, had an impressive growth of popularity on social media channels. Interestingly, the words metaverse and physical relate to different industries, retail being on the top concerned ones, and it's a conversation topic mostly engaged by male millennials. Now, our data confirms the relevance of the metaverse in the retail world, but how should businesses enter this emerging digital retail landscape? Today's last insight to action takes inspiration from the digital twin technologies. It is very much built around the idea that virtual and physical worlds need to be mirrored. So instead of imagining physical and digital dimensions getting mixed, what if in the future, real life and virtuality will simply become two sides of the same coin? When you get to learn more about digital twin technologies and what they mean, it's actually a complex process involving data collection and integration. But for our webinar's purpose, it's enough to think about how physical products can have tangible counterparts. It's rather an oversimplified way of thinking of these technologies, but the idea that in the future, you have to address to a consumer who has this double-sided life, one physical and one virtual, is very, very powerful. Coachella's Keys collection is a great business case that illustrates this insight to action. Recently, the festival announced its lifetime passes for the first time. It auctioned a group of 10 NFTs that allow holders lifetime tickets to the festival. And besides getting passes to Coachella every year, virtual experiences and special perks during the festival were offered. Here, Coachella took the use of NFTs and really took it to another level by selling a pass with tangible physical rewards. In many cases, it's difficult to think of a perfect replica of something that is sold online, but embracing this idea that whatever is purchased in virtuality comes with a physical reward is very, very strong. So our webinar today was dedicated to answer the following question: how to connect with tomorrow's consumers? From physical stores to the metaverse, the ways of connecting with this meta shopper starts in real life with one-to-one interaction, and it extends all the way to loyalty boosting strategies in virtuality. Here we have a summary of all the topics that we've seen today. These are some of our answers to that question. So everything starts in the physical world, where brick and mortar embraces this quality of flexibility to its core. Businesses really need to start reimagining brick and mortar as a space that fulfills needs. Physical space needs to be designed with an open-ended approach. But it doesn't stop there. As the very purpose of physical retail changes, and this need to differentiate in real life and virtual experiences becomes so evident, hands-on experiences should be one of the top priorities for retailers. Explore the opportunities of providing moments that have meaning in the physical realm, something that really activates all senses of consumers. Moving on to virtuality, retailers cannot overlook the power of entertainment. Exploit everything you can, especially from social media, and do it in a way that consumers will feel engaged. In a way they will actually have fun, an enjoyable moment. This approach is fundamental in the buying journey, particularly in the moment of product service discovery and testing. Once shoppers made their minds and chose whatever product or service they were looking for, leave out all the possible frictions in the last mile stage. Prioritize and invest in solutions that will provide stress-free integrated purchasing experiences. And as we start to unlock the opportunities in the rising metaverse, really transform loyalty into ownership. Use these emerging technologies as tool, not just to level up your loyalty programs, but to make consumers feel like they own a piece of your company. Finally, embrace what we call the digital twin mindset, meaning the need to provide virtual offers associated with physical tangible rewards. Project this future where everything will be mirrored between digital and non-virtual worlds. What we do in real life will have impacts on virtuality and vice versa. So design your products and services with that in mind, that consumers tomorrow will navigate these two dimensions swiftly. They will have mirrored lives. With this recap, we come to the end of today's journey. I hope you all enjoyed the whole journey, and you find out more about tomorrow's consumers. I believe now we can move to the Q&A session.
Thanks, Deborah. Wow, so much to take on. And I must say, I finally understood the role and the value of NFT. I mean, I can see really that there is a potential there, and there is something that can actually play a real value for consumers and brands. And we have a lot of questions from the audience, so it's hard to think about where to start. But just bear in mind, we still have 9 minutes left, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible. But those that we will not be able to answer directly during the session here will be answered to you directly in a separate email and so on. A couple of questions for you, Deborah, and I think very much linked to what you just presented. So obviously everyone is very keen and worried about or considering, okay, how do I take all this on? What is the most relevant thing that I should do? What is going to be the most successful one? And particularly, what are the core principles that you think are key to successfully implement some of these approaches?
Yeah, when we're talking about tomorrow's consumer, and we did all that discussion about how it's going to be an evolution of what we see today already. I mentioned briefly the sustainability aspect as a value, as an imperative when we were talking about the e-commerce trend. So maybe I didn't go into much detail when we were talking about values today, but when we're talking about physical retail, for example, for sure, inclusivity and accessibility will be key values, key principles to take in mind and to take into consideration. I can do a reference to the retail, the human scale retail trend that we just saw, where there's this notion of community, slimmer, personal interactions being needed. But then maybe when we're talking about virtuality and even the metaverse, we can talk about representation as being one important imperative to keep an eye on. I think the more businesses go into these virtual spaces, they'll be facing a lot of difficult questions about representation. How do you represent your business in the metaverse? Will it be an avatar? How will this avatar look like? So for now, we've seen a lot of short-term activations and temporary events, but the more they enter in this world, in this new territory, the more they'll be facing these difficult questions, especially about representation.
Right, and so I think you have partially already answered this question, but another question that came up is about the future of the brand-consumer relationship. Is it going to be in the future something that is more transactional or less transactional? Is that something that where the brand relationship with the consumer is going to be beyond the purchasing experience?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely. What we're seeing today is that everything is kind of going beyond the simple act of buying products and services, right? There's this notion of lifestyle brands that is gaining a lot of traction in all industries. So basically, it's a brand that is so much in line with consumers' values, their interests, and attitudes. With their lifestyles in general, not just during that shopping journey, but with their lives in a larger sense. It makes me think of a business case that we talked about today, the Selfridges business case, that the retailer was kind of providing this wellness centric moments for customers that kind of went way beyond whatever they traditionally do as a business, right? So we'll be seeing a lot of that brand, this relationship between consumer and brand is going to be so much connected in the level that is not just in the buying experience moment, but it will spread in very aspects of their lives.
Great. Thank you, Debora, for this. And we have a few more questions. A couple of questions I would like to pick up myself very, very quickly. One question is about, is this still relevant, or how much all the recent events and the current situation is actually going to affect everything that we have presented? And of course, as we are constantly in a status of crisis. We just came out of the COVID crisis. We are going to enter into another more dangerous and scary crisis related to the conflicts around the world. But the point is that we have done this work and we have collected this data from since 2018, and is a constant analysis of the data that we collect, where we have seen a constant evolution of consumer and shopper behaviors, where yes, we think obviously everything that is happening around the world is having an impact, maybe a slight change in speed and direction of behaviors. But the more we enter in this space and world of digital and physical coming and merging together with a digital twin mindset, I don't think this is a stoppable evolution, and potentially it could actually be accelerated by constraints and limits that we are going to see coming from the challenges and the crises in the world. And we will actually keep doing the journey with you. So this is a journey, as I mentioned, is the beginning. We have presented the data and the findings and the thinking for now, but we will actually come back to you with updates on how these kind of things are evolving and changing, and any dramatic or significant change will be obviously highlighted. There's another question related to how does that fit with grocery or convenience store, or anyway, the main mass market shopping. And even though many of those examples of maximum consumer experience and so on is clearly related to Selfridges or luxury brands and unique brands like Nike, in reality, everything here is applicable in the mass retail store as well. And particularly as we go into the space of Metaverse, just imagine the opportunity through augmented reality and virtual reality, the ability to actually navigate stores. And then as immediacy is becoming and personalization is becoming critical expectation from the consumer, and we have delivery services which are completely immediate, you could actually move from your Metaverse space into your physical space, and from a shopping experience in Metaverse into a delivery experience in front of your door straight away. So everything very, very relevant. But we are running out of time here. We are very close to the end of our hour. And so we will need to follow up with the other questions in the future. So what next? What can you do now? Well, thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for staying with us. And thank you, Debora, to take us through this amazing journey and an amazing experience for the shopper. If you have, if you think that you have missed something, you can actually listen to the session again. You will have the link to the recording by email very soon. You can share everything that you have seen and listened today with your team, involving your team and sharing the report that you will be able to download, particularly if you are a Next Atlas corporate user. The report will be free to download in our platform. And there is always something new to discover about Next Atlas and the Next Atlas platform. And so please get in touch with us. We will be delighted to take you through a free demo of Next Atlas and everything that you can find and learn from the Next Atlas Insight. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Debora, for the amazing work. Thanks to your team and the team that has worked with you to make this possible. People behind the scene, Jada, and all the others that have done a great job. It's been exciting to be here today with you, and I look forward to being with you for the next webinar.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All the best. Take care, all of you.